We'll kick things off. Welcome and thank you for joining us in today's webinar. My name is Tosan Marte, and I'm the Inbound Marketing Manager here at Acedo. Today's webinar is titled The Data-Driven Video Solution. So before I pass things on to the speaker, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. Today's webinar is scheduled for an hour, including Q&A, and all participants are in listen-only mode. Questions can be submitted at any time using the webinar platform at the bottom of your screen, and a recording will be sent to all registrants after the webinar. So for the speakers for today, we have Lou Gaydon. He comes to us with 20 years of experience in the digital and online video space. As the VP of Solution Management, Luke is responsible for identifying, defining growth opportunities here at Acedo. And prior to Acedo, Luke ran the Bright Cove OTT solution business, and he held roles in OC and C consulting. Also joining us is Geronimo Moukakis. He is the CEO at Jump Data Driven Video. Geronimo is a digital entrepreneur, and he has years of experience in the media and entertainment space. He has 20 years of experience growing B2B businesses from greenfield to profitability. And previous to Jump, he was actually the VP of the Latin America and Southern European market here at Acedo. The floor is yours, Luke.
Thanks, Tosan. Hi, everyone. It's Luke here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to Acedo, and then Geronimo is going to do the same for Jump. So Acedo is a video solutions provider. We deliver about 300 million plus users to the various services that we support, and do around 30 billion API calls last year. I think we'll probably do more this year thanks to the World Cup. We have a number of different services that we provide to our customers who are primarily in the media, entertainment, and pay TV sectors. We have a cloud-based technology platform called Acedo One that does everything from app building and configuration, analytics, and A/B testing. We have a work on multiple platforms for building video experiences for the markets I mentioned. And we also have a managed service offering where we provide tailored support to those services, including level 1 and 2 support with NOC services. Geronimo.
Thanks, Luke. So thanks everybody for joining. At Jump, what we do is we provide technology for advanced insights and AI platform for video businesses. Actually, what we want to do to help our customers is discover the power of the data-driven video. For that, we have different products from deep insights about audience, content, engagement, advanced technologies for facing different challenges through machine learning and AI technology, and also doing and enable the activation of the data through different technologies for impact and influence the user behavior through data. Actually, our solutions are fully focused on video in our business models. So we create a solution and packages for SBOT, for TV Everywhere, for TVOD, and for AVOD. And the idea is use data for really make the video ROI more profitable and really increase the overall business performance of our customers.
Oh, apologies, we skipped a couple of slides there. So a brief history of user experience is the title of this slide. I'm not a user experience expert nor a user experience historian, but I have been working on the internet for the last 20 years or so. And when I consider the sort of sentence that I've started the slide with, which it's not good news, sorry, it's not news that a good user experience means happy customers. It isn't news. We've now known that for some time. But if I think back to some of the digital services that I worked on when I first started my career in the digital industry, I had a stint at Channel 4, and we did some amazing things and broke some really new ground with some very innovative services. The first E4.com, mobile television channels, simulcast of terrestrial channels, well, Channel 4, obviously. And, with my current hat on, as in here and now, they were all very, very unusable. You couldn't use E4.com on a Mac. The mobile TV channel didn't really work because it was in the days before the smartphone. It might have even been in the days before 3G. And the simulcast of Channel 4 terrestrial or linear channel, there were whole blocks of the schedule that weren't cleared for digital distribution. So you had enormous sort of empty slates for 30 and 45 minutes at a time, which I think all of which things would qualify as not a great user experience. That is more intended as a comparison for, I guess, how far we've come since then, both in terms of understanding how to do testing, how to do UAT, and how not to, cut out the time for testing and the time for UAT and so forth in a development process. But also, more importantly, understanding that the data that you gather once the service is launched is, as much, probably more important than everything that you do, to that point before you launch. So obviously internal testing then moved into beta testing to focus groups, etc. But really it's only when you get your service out into the wild and have real users, I suppose I would say, interacting with your service, do you actually understand what they like and what they don't like. I guess the sort of the change in thinking that I would sort of talk about is from thinking that the builder of the service knows best to effectively the customer knows best. And obviously that process, that evolution, if you will, was very much helped by the fact that the internet or building services for the internet was still quite young. We have better processes, better testing, better analytics, people who now know more about building a good user experience for a digital service. And so again, as I said, the way that we now arrive at a good user experience has changed enormously in that time. Why is that important in the context of the discussion that we're having here today? I'm a sucker for a good infographic, and I think this one is excellent. It's actually a couple of years old, and it attempts, I think, successfully to map out you can count them, but the very, very many different media and entertainment services, whether it's user-generated, premium, theatrical, sports, etc., content that are established in the OTT universe. And this isn't all of them, and it's 2 years old. And so again, if you updated this infographic, and I hope that it is soon, you can find it on LinkedIn. I hope that it will provide an even more graphical instrumentation of how the OTT universe is expanding. The reason that that's important is that it means that there are more and more places that we can all go to get the things that we're interested in, which means, as the saying goes, the competition for eyeballs is getting more and more, is getting fiercer and fiercer. The statistics that I'm using here are for primarily for the OTT and the SVOD sector, of course. And what you can see there is that in comparison to other industries, the OTT and SVOD, has almost the highest churn rate in this graph. And this graph was from Recurly's, some research that Recurly did last year. Interestingly enough, I think Parks Associates have just released a set of research that shows that churn in SVOD services in the United States is holding steady at 18%. So I think if you went back to last year or the year before that even, people were saying, churn SVOD service providers were saying that churn was the biggest single challenge or issue that they had to deal with. So it's been a recognized issue for a number of years, a short number of years. But yet, again, if you take 2017 and 2018, that 18% in the US has stayed the same. So whatever it is that we're doing or that service providers are doing is to try and reduce churn is having a limited effect. Probably, I would say, because there are new OTT services arriving every time, all the time, which means you always have more choices. So it's a very, very difficult space to operate in, and it means you've got to use everything, every tool that you have to make your service more usable, more sticky, more engaging. This stat obviously, or this table is specific to SVOD services, but if I think about AVOD services, I think there's a parallel to be drawn there, for instance, with the rise in ad blockers. Although that is primarily affected, I would suggest, the news and the publishing industry, sort of magazine sites and so forth, the ad blocking and the tools the technology tools that we've come up with or the industry has come up with to address them, the cause of ad blocking is a lousy user experience. It's having ads appear all over the page, all over the app experience or whatever, and really providing such a bad experience that people feel compelled to do something about it. And what they do is they effectively kill the revenue stream that is supporting that service. But again, to labor the point, ad blockers, the technology for ad blockers, this is addressing a symptom of the problem, not the cause, I would suggest. So what is the value of a data-driven user experience? So again, the notion of testing to get reactions, to get consumer and user reactions to evolve and improve a service, user experience of service, this is not news. We have been progressively getting better and better, progressively at using that analytics data, using that user data to improve the user experience. But the thing that hasn't changed is the need for human intervention to take that data, to take that information, to analyze it, and then to implement the results of that analysis in your service, in your app. Now, I remember having a conversation 3 or 4 years ago with a colleague who again works in the broadcast service, who said with I think a mixture of frustration and embarrassment that there were parts of their service, certain platforms, app-specific platforms, where they knew that there were problems, they wanted to address them, they understood and agreed that there were problems there, but there was, they had to book the development team to fix the problem, to test it, to release it back through the App Store, and they had X number of things that they also had to deal with, and there wasn't the time or the money to do it. Or if there was the time, then by the time they kind of crowbarred fixing the problems into the roadmap, it was a month or 2 months later that it was implemented, and by that time you'd lost however many subscribers or however many people had installed ad blockers, or they'd decided to go somewhere else. And every day that ticks on, you're actually losing. You're losing money or disappointing your audience, and that's not a great space to be in. We see the data-driven user experience ultimately as being one that can be fully automated. So your insights are coming in from your different data sources. The Jump TV platform is parsing them and suggesting actions that you can perform off the back of that. And then, again, and Geronimo will speak to this, the integration between Jump and the Excedo One platform means that those changes to the UX can be made on the fly according to a set of predefined business rules. So whether it's the user journey, whether it is addressing a particular section of your subscriber base that looks like it might be churning, these are, or even re-engaging them. These can be done as you're getting these insights through. So you're losing the minimum amount of time between the analysis, the understanding of the problem, and the ability to address that problem. And we think, again, when you're looking at the fierce competition that video service providers are having to operate within, the time, as ever, is of the essence. So that is the kind of, I guess that's the context behind the vision that we've got of a data-driven user experience and why we think it's important. I caveat what I've just said about a fully automated experience by saying we're not there yet. We are still iterating both of our platforms and integration thereof to kind of get us there, but we believe we're close to it. And so I'm going to hand over to Geronimo now, who is going to talk to that evolution, but specifically to the packages that we have available today, which address those issues. Geronimo, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Luke. Thanks, everybody. So essentially, now we are going to look to some specific use cases. So Luke has mentioned about some of the possibilities that at the end of the day, data-driven video brings to the table. We are going to mention some of them, but the possibilities are endless. We are just figuring out here some of, I would say, worrying challenges from the video service providers, but that not necessarily means that these are the things that you can do. But there's a lot of different possibilities that you will understand once you enter into a data-driven video approach and a strategy, that this is the way to go. So let's put some interesting use cases. An initial one could be the measuring UX flows performance. As Luke stated, there is a way now to really gather data from a lot of UX data points that are happening across the different multi-screen apps that the video services have available nowadays, and try to get a sense of which are the different flows and the different paths that are working better and which are the paths that not, and really go deeper, understand what is happening, and then what it's really interesting is to make changes in the user experience on the fly, and then have the possibility later on to track the performance of the changes that you have done and see if these have improved your business or not. This sounds like, of course, very interesting, but what it's really important is to make these things really easy to do, and in a way that really is effective and really can be done in an agile way. So I'm trying to figuring out how to do these things with the Axido One data-driven video powered by Jam. So essentially we will go, there's a lot of different things that you can look at in data-driven video, but we are gonna just focus on these use cases. So if we go to the UX performance specifically, we can see here that there is a different path to first free content or complete registration, complete acquisition, start playback across your portfolio of video service devices you have out there. So we can very easy to analyze which are the devices that are working better and which ones have any, you can identify any business blocker. So in this case, for example, path to start playback, we are seeing that the PC Mac is not performing very well because it's taking more time than the average to really reach the first playback in its user session. So you can go deeper and you can click on this path, and then you can take a look about what is happening here, right? When you take a look to the flow, you can easily understand that there is a lot of people that is dropping off on the content description page. Okay, so there's something that we should be, we should do here. Like, for example, in this case, skip for all our service or specific sections of our service in the PC app, the content description part. So we can do this very easy. If we go to our app, for example, we can see that we have these highlights. And if you have Interstellar movie and you want to watch this movie, first when you click, you have this description page, right? So what we want to do is to skip this step and make things happen in terms of start playback directly. So what you can do directly from the JAM Axido One platform is to make an impact and connect directly through Axido One to this page, to this configuration CMS, where what we can do is to change in real time what is happening on your app. So we go in, and then we go to this specific section, and then we can go to this highlight. If we look for Interstellar, then we can say, okay, let's play directly the trailer instead, or the movie, instead of going through the content detail page. And then I can republish the app. And then if I refresh, and I go directly, once it's refreshed, to this movie. Okay, I need to look for it. Okay, Interstellar can start playback directly, right? So that's something that took us some seconds, and it's really interesting, because now what we can do is, okay, we have done this change, because we identify this blocker, we can come back sometime after this and then look for the effectiveness of this change. So I can say, okay, what happens with this change I did on this date? And suddenly I can see that there is a reduction in 10 seconds in the time or the start playback time compared with the previous UX layout. So that's the kind of things that we want to do with the data-driven video. This is a first case. A second one is we really identify that there is a direct relationship about the performance of your service and how you position your catalog within the application, right? So in this case, what we want to do is which are the genres and which are the content types that are performing better in the different sections of the app. And then again, if it's not performing as we expect, make some changes in the Axido One CMS, then track the performance later on. So as simple as going to content performance and content performance versus UX, we are going to be capable of really track how the different genres are performing in the different sections of the app. So I can go to one specific genre. For example, again, I can take a look at thriller. Thriller in the originals section is not performing as is below average. So again, I can take a look first of my app and the original section. Definitely, when we look at it, there is not a lot of thriller movies here, right? So what we can do directly is to click here to make a change in the original section. Again, we can make an impact through the Axido One platform. And in this case, what we want to do in this section is to include more thriller highlights, right? So if I look for a thriller carousel, I can include one carousel here. I can put it even, I can organize the order. Then I can publish. Here we publish. And as soon as it is republished, I can come back here, refresh. And then I have included more content here on the original page and doing a dynamic UX changes. So again, as soon as I do this action, the platform is going to track the effectiveness of this change. So in this case, it's this campaign, and sometime after this change, I can track the number of plays for movies on Thriller Grid, and the web has increased. So this is the second use case, how to position better your catalog using data-driven approach. Third one, managing churn. We've been discussing a lot previously in the webinar about churn, but that's the reality is that 3 years in a row, the churn rates is still the same in the SBOT industry. So now, using new techniques, advanced analytics, machine learning, there is a way to really make a prediction using a lot of user activity within the app to understand if people are in risk or not. So here the case is predict your churn rate, score your audience risk, identify, and this is probably the most important, which are the main influencers for people to live, and last but not least, of course, make any action so you can impact your user behavior and then reduce churn. So again, if you go to the platform, to the section, to the cancellation section, we can definitely understand your past churn rate. That's easy, it's the past, we know what can happen. We also can make a prediction about what is gonna look like your churn rate. So depending on the different actions you do, we can score your entire audience so you can understand how many people you have in top risk, in high risk, in low risk, okay? And what is more important, which are the main influencers for people to live. So in this case, these are UX events. So things like average playback time or cumulative playback time or proportions of active days are relevant for people to live. But even you can go deeper and make an analysis of each main influencer and understand which are the thresholds for your audience to be classified in any of these groups. So for example, in this case, you know that people that have an average playback time below 10 minutes are typically people that are going to be at risk. And the good thing is that you can do all of this automatically. And again, you can select these guys and you can make an action. In this case, a marketing actions through any of third parties, MailChimp or push notifications, or even export the data to other platforms to really make an impact. So this is a churn. And I'm not gonna do the action actually because it's fully related with the next one. That is doing data-driven activities. That is at the end what really can make direct impact on customer behavior. So again, if we back to the platform and we look, for example, of our clustering tool, you can understand things that, for example, people that are sleeping users, at the same time, they are serious driven in consumption, and then they are thriller addicts. For example, you can click on these guys and you can make an action through any of these third-party marketing tools. In this case, we're gonna do this through MailChimp. So we select MailChimp, we can select the campaign that we want to launch a direct action. In this case, sleeping, thriller, serious addicts. So we can send the campaign for people to be impacted. Of course, you can ask yourselves, okay, what about the visuals? How can I create the messaging for reaching these guys? In the tool that you want to use, in this case, MailChimp, you can create your campaign, your creativity. What we will do is we will communicate through an API directly through MailChimp, and then we will impact people. So if we look at my email, in this case, the process is complete, so the campaign has been sent, and then as you can see, I have this messaging for me to be reactivated as a sleeping user. So that's the power, and as you can see, and if you do these things actually at your company, you can understand that it takes a lot of time to really, for our marketing guys to retrieve data, filter data, segment data, do quality of data, and then send it out to the outbound marketing team, and then send it out to the audience. So you can do all of this at once now with our solution. And the last one, last but not least, of course, recommendations are really important. Most of the things you need for doing recommendations are also UX event. And also it's really important to put context when you make recommendations. So the approach that we have for our recommendation technology is really to take into consideration not just which are the content or the movies or series that you typically watch, but also what day of the week you are and what time is set, so we can really tailor a lot the recommendations that we are providing to you at every single moment when you are trying to watch content. So this is a little bit more challenging to show because this is actually an algorithm, but I have a video here that explains a little bit how this works. Let me just put a couple of minutes of video, but I think it's really illustrative.
Now let's go to the use cases. First use case. We select user number 4, day of the week, Saturday, and time of the day, evening. We also tick on display recent in order to see the recent content this user has watched. Pressing the recommended content button, we get content that this user has recently watched. So we see that this user likes science fiction and romantic comedy. We see that specifically on Saturdays, he or she has usually watched romance and science fiction movies. We also see what content the user has watched in the evenings at the given time, and we notice that the user has never watched any romantic title.
Okay, I think the video is not, you guys are not watching the video. Just a second, I can share a new screen so you all can watch the video. Okay, I think here it is. I'll play again.
We select user number 4, day of the week, Saturday, and time of the day, evening. We also tick on display recent in order to see the recent content this user has watched. Pressing the recommended content button, we get content that this user has recently watched. So we see that this user likes science fiction and romantic comedy. We see that specifically on Saturdays, he or she has usually watched romance and science fiction movies. We also see what content the user has watched in the evenings at the given time, and we notice that the user has never watched any romantic title on evenings at this time. So, based on his or her user playback history and content similarity, analyzing metadata image recognition and natural language processing to create semantic relationships using content synopsis and subtitles, the proposed recommendations for this user on this Saturday evening and for this device are these 14 science fiction and action titles, ordered according to the Deep Recommender Content Similarity Scoring Matrix. Second use case, we're going to use the same user as in the previous case, user number 4, and the same day of the week, Saturday. But we're going to change the time of the day from evening to morning so that we see how the recommendations will change depending on the time of day that the user uses the video service. Now, when we press the recommended content button, we get content this user has recently watched. Obviously, we get the same content as in the previous use case because it's the same user. Since it's still Saturday, we also get the same titles as in the previous case. However, now the user is using the service in the morning, so what we get is the historical content that the user has watched on Saturday mornings at similar times. We see that he or she has watched romantic and science fiction titles. So, based on this user playback history and content similarity, the proposed recommendations for this user on this Saturday morning and for this device are these 14 romantic and drama titles, ordered according to the Deep Recommender Content Similarity Matrix Scoring. As a result, comparing use case 1 and 2, we see how recommendations for the same user are different depending on the time of the day that the user uses the video service. Jump Deep Recommender thus clearly solves the issue of handling several user profiles under the same video service. All in all, Jump Deep Recommender can help your audience easily connect with the content they love, taking their different consumption habits into account, depending on the device they use, when they use it, and what content they like at any given time. Take personalized entertainment to the next level. Discover the power of data-driven video. Please contact us for further information. Okay, guys, so I think that's all from
from the use case. Tosan, do you want to take the lead? Maybe for the question part?
Yes, so we did have a few questions come in. Give me a second, let me pull this up. So we had a question from the audience. What is the typical precision of churn prediction, and which are the main tips you will provide to make this process successful? Could you take that, Geronimo or Luke?
Yeah, sure. So in reality, it's really important. I think one of the challenges with personalization and recommendation in the past is that you don't take into consideration the context of a particular user when they face the situation of really being recommended by the video service. So taking into consideration the season, if it's a summer holiday period, whatever, it's really important. And you really have a lot of data, especially if you've been running recommendations for some time, to really understand what kind of content people watch during summer or during Christmas. Or if you are one of those guys that really every single Christmas period you watch, Christmas movies or not. So all these things temporarily are really important and are part of the discovery that the data-driven video can really take into consideration, not just what type of movies you typically do.
Great. Another question here. Do you think any automation of these processes anytime soon, and how will this impact the industry?
I can give my answer, and also Luke, I think can have actually mentioned a bit at the beginning. But I think automation probably is the ultimate goal. There's a lot of activities in our industry as well, in the video industry, that really can be improved if are fully automated. And that's something that definitely we are going to see very soon in the market. So I think we are not far from there. We are not yet there. You are right. But one of the probably reasons for not being there is not technology. It's more about how much trustability as a business owner and manager you put in hands of machines and algorithms to really drive my business, right? And this is not unique on the video industry, but in all industries, actually. So I think we will start to see more and more adoptions of these techniques as soon as business owners and managers really understand that AI and machine learning is not magic, and there are not robots, embodying the world. It's more about taking data and make a lot of sense about the data and really trigger actions based on this data and track the performance of the actions that you have done to really ensure that the things that the machines are doing are really driving and improving my business. So I think we are almost there. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, sorry, searching for the mute button. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, our combined vision for the work that we are doing together is that ultimately these processes will be automated. They'll be all automated, but not with humans taken out of the loop, as it were, without wishing to sound all kind of Terminator-esque, but that the ability to take actions, to make changes, improvements to a service based on the data is that much quicker and that much more seamless. And ultimately, that must be a good thing both for service providers, but particularly for the users of the services. So, you know, I wouldn't be able to put an exact timeline on it. Otherwise, our combined engineering departments would probably shoot me. But Geronimo's right. We are, you know, I would say we are a number of months away. I'll leave it at that.
So we have another question from the audience. It says, I see a significant challenge with Netflix because we have multiple people with different behaviors, such as times they watch the shows they prefer. How do you recommend handling user identification to make recommendations for multiple users in a household?
That's actually a really good question, because it's exactly one of the use cases that we show in the recommendation use case. So instead of really forcing users to really, you know, have a profile, and then you need to enter with a specific profile, that actually, you're right, it doesn't work. So actually, nobody of us in our at home are really doing this very, you know, with a very effectiveness, because you have your kids that enter into your profile, or then you are watching movies or series with your profile, but you are with your wife, or so. Definitely, I don't think that really it's the way to go. I see the future really taking all this amount of data that you have to really understand what kind of content you watch on Saturday morning, and probably if it's kids and this is a repeat tendency, you can definitely take that information for independently of the profile, generate recommendations that are kids driven. This is a pattern that you see in the data. In the same way, if like in the example on a specific time frame, there's always a trend for watching a specific kind of type of movies, you can definitely take that input to really improve the recommendations. So at least what we have seen using these techniques is that you really get a kind of profiling on your video service without the need of creating or forcing the users to create profiles, or at least not just this way.
Great. And Luke, anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I think the question of multiple profiles, as Geronimo says, is an interesting one. If I think about my family's Netflix account, I think my wife and I both have profiles, and if you know, when you click on each one, you get very different shows that we've watched, and also shows that are recommended to us. And so, you know, expanding on Geronimo's point, I would agree, based on a very small data set, which is my Netflix account, that it is you could say to a reasonable degree of accuracy, okay, that's Luke watching Netflix at whatever time of day versus that's Luke's wife watching Netflix at whatever time of day.
Great. And last question here. So we have an audience member asking, additionally, recent research by traditional TV research groups suggests that the migration of users from traditional TV to OTT is slowing down. Do you see this, and why?
I will take a stab at this one. So I haven't seen this research. I would love it if the audience member wouldn't mind sharing the source for that, because I'd love to see how they define traditional TV and OTT and kind of what's included and what's not. Again, and I'm assuming this is relatively recent data. I'll start with that. So do we see this? I will put my hand up and say, no, I haven't. Geronimo may well have done. Why do I think that migration of users from traditional TV to OTT is slowing? It may be for a number of reasons. I think that the demographic of OTT users is different to the demographic for traditional TV users, and this is a generalization, but I would suggest that there is a segment of the demographic of traditional TV users who may never switch to OTT services, for a number of reasons. And so it may be that we are approaching, a temporary threshold for OTT users. The reason that I would say it's temporary is because the ability to use OTT services depends on availability of services in the country or the region that you live in, the ability of the infrastructure of the region that you live in to support OTT services in a way that makes it a usable experience. Not everything is available on OTT or on OTT services, at least not on legitimate ones. And so, again, there are subsets of content, genre, programs, and so forth that you can only get on traditional TV, again, for a number of reasons. So those are some of the reasons why I might imagine that that migration is happening. Why, if I'm not seeing this, why do I not see it slowing down? I think this is the sort of second part to that question, and I haven't seen it, so I couldn't give you a reason about why it isn't slowing down. But again, I'd love to know where that research company comes from, so I can go and have a look at it. Geronimo, do you want to take us through?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of studies about it, but that's the key point here is exactly one of the things you mentioned at the beginning of this answer, is that what traditional TV is nowadays, because I don't think there's any single, let's call it traditional pay TV operator that are not looking at complementing their service with OTT or with new generation of services, or even more recently to bundle the OTT packages as part of the offering. So, and with that context, probably now we are, I think, in a situation in the market when pay TV is complementing OTT and the other way around. And what I would like to see probably in some months from now, it's what would happen when finally some of the big guys will get some of the sport rights out there or widely spread, and see what happened with people that really can, have a sports offering out of the pay TV. So I think there's both pros and cons for really taking OTT seriously from the pay TV perspective. But I think overall, it's really great that the industry is complementing each other. And I think we probably will see some years or complementary offerings, and that it's gonna be a very exciting phase of the industry to look at.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Geronimo and Luke. This has been an interesting conversation. I will wrap things off now since there are no more questions. Just to add, we will be at IBC on Friday. You can join us. You can either meet Geronimo or Luke at the booth. Our stand is E10 in Hall 14. And I have sent a link to everyone where you can basically look it down and schedule some time to meet us at IBC. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us again on this webinar. For additional questions that were sent in afterwards, we will be sending you a Q&A summary and also a link to the recording as well. Thanks again. Have a great day, everyone.